Hello, welcome to Fireside Chats. My name is Magla Pillai, and today I have in the studio with me Sister Denise, who has been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for over 40 years. Today's topic is entitled Into the Mind of God. This subject is of deep fascination to me, and I hope it is of some interest to you, because although there are many across the globe who understand God, who seek God, who wish to be with God, there are very few who understand the mind of God. And it is for this reason that it is my honor to interview someone who has spent over 4 decades in the company of God and who will share her experience with you. So Denise, thank you so much for joining us, and a very warm welcome to today's show.
Thank you very much.
So, Sister Denise, into the mind of God. That is, that question carries with it such power and such a promise of beauty. The first question I have for you is, how does one even get there? Many seek it, but yet so few find it. Why is it in the purview of so few and not of the majority?
Well, to come close to someone, you have to love them. And loving somebody doesn't mean what you can get from them in a selfish way. Loving someone means really appreciating them, really adoring them because of the wonder that is within them. And of course, the most extraordinary being there is God. And God is not a human being. So it means that we, in order to go close to God, we have to transcend our human limitations, which are all to do with materialism. So, you love God, but you don't know God. That means that you're approaching God in your mind with an aim of wishing that God will show himself and open himself and let you in, which means you have to make approaches. If you please God, if you are attractive to God, then God is said to be very innocent and will open up and receive you very easily. God is discarnate, incorporeal. God is not a body, doesn't have a body. And so for us to go to God means we have to leave our body down here and start to think of ourselves as being able to function independently of the body, which means we have to look at our identity. And this is why I think when God teaches, the first teaching that is given is you are not a body. You need to think of yourself as a discarnate soul who is incarnated into a body, but who is not that body. Because as soon as you consider yourself to be a soul, and of course within your soul there is your mind, then you take your mind with you when you go beyond your body, and it means you're on the same level of God, so it becomes mind to supreme mind, soul to supreme soul, and you open yourself up to God. The most important characteristic for getting close to God is sincerity. If you're not sincere, God will say, well, if you're not sincere, then what am I doing, But if you're sincere, if you're real, God is absolutely reciprocal. You come to God with love and sincerity, God will come to you with love and sincerity too, And whatever it is that you wish for from God in terms of not fulfilling some of your worldly desires, but you really want to know God, you really want to feel God, God will say, okay, I will let you feel me. And so coming into the mind of God is to go into what God is thinking, how God feels about what's happening in the world, how God feels about you, how God feels about the global situation. All of these things is a most extraordinary thing, most desirable.
Mr. Denise, a common complaint of a lot of people is that they communicate with God in whatever way, but they do not feel that He's listening. They don't feel heard. What would be your response to that?
I think it's because of the way they've been taught how to address God, full of demands. And God relates to human beings that these are all my children, and I am, the Lord of the universe, so everything in the universe belongs to me. So it doesn't seem right for my children to approach me as beggars. So God will really respond when a soul is more in their self-respect, coming to God as one with rights, as one who wishes to learn, who wishes to change, who wishes to be on the same level, who wishes to understand. There, God will be very reciprocal. And if you just say, oh God, fix this and sort out that and so on and so forth, it's slightly insulting. God knows what to do and what not to do, and why things are the way they are, So I think a lot of the problem is because people don't know themselves, they don't know who God is or what God is or where God is or whatever, and so operating on the basis of not knowing, the efforts to reach God fall flat.
Okay.
That's the problem.
So, Sister Denise, there are many of God's children who approach Him with a feeling of desperation because that is their circumstances. They are in dire straits. Their problems are deep and real as far as their finances are concerned, as far as their health is concerned, mental problems, relationship problems. So they call out to Him with deep sorrow, and their prayers, if you want to call it that, is sincere but desperate. What is the response in such a circumstance?
What has to happen is the person has to absolutely drop their ego and say to God, I am absolutely unable to control my life. I give up. You take over. When you approach God more like that, absolutely sincerely rather than desperately, because the desperate is trying to force God to do something, whereas the sincere one is really just giving up totally and saying, I'm yours, do with me what you will. I can no longer control my life. I turn myself over to you. This is when God is able to respond in a way that is a great relief. And people who do that, they do speak about how they experience this flood of peace and relief, and that, yes, there is someone who is there for them and responding to them.
Mr. Denise, due to conditioning from one's childhood, from various religions, there are many across the globe who fear God and who are under the illusion that God is a punisher, God is a judge, God will cause harm, and so although they want to be with him or her, they tend to hold back and look at God through the lens of fear, and need God on the one hand, but on the other hand do not know how to get past their own negative conditioning. Or how do you let go of false preconceptions of the divine?
Well, that's quite a complex thing, because what is happening is that, you know, the great religions of the world have presented God in a certain way, and mostly in the way that you have described, because the conventional morality that you've heard me also sometimes talk about is based in the idea that you correct people through violating them, through punishing them, and so on. And so it's a kind of anthropomorphization of God, that whatever are your attitudes towards correcting other people, you will imply that those are God's attitudes, and then you tell people that's how God operates, but actually you have no idea. And so in that way, the religions have failed humanity and have actually led people astray, misled people. And I think one of the things that is happening is that people are sort of leaving the religions because of that. But then you've got a backlash that's also there in the religions, which is the rise of religious fanaticism. And you see, people will subscribe to religious fanaticism because it's easy, because they don't have to think, because they don't have to take responsibility, they don't have to expect to be held accountable. So, so there are large numbers of people who do that, but that doesn't make it a solution. What's really needed, I think, is for a person to go deep inside and look to the place within their being where they believe in God, where they have some part, very protected part in their heart, where they keep their relationship with God. They need to go there and expand on that and work with that and approach God from within. That, I think, is going to help them. And I think that God at this time is very active, so that anyone who is addressing God in that sincere way and really wanting to know, God is going to respond either through very powerful feelings, or through a visionary experience, or through some sign, or through, you know, sending someone who knows something to that person. God acts in quite subtle ways, in quite indirect ways, but definitely will respond.
In terms of God in relation to us, how does God feel in reality about his children, and I mean all 7 billion of us? Is there a does he love some more than he loves others? Does he ignore some and pays more attention to others? Does he give indiscriminately? Because if you look at the world, there are some who have too much, and there are far too many who have little or nothing. The big names within religious institutions, the chosen ones. Does God love priests and religious leaders of every single religion more than he loves those who do not have religious titles? How does he spread the love?
God is reciprocal. So if you love God, God loves you. If you hate God, if you are arrogant towards God, then that will cause God to recede from you. God will not hate you, punish you, or anything like that, but you will find yourself very far from God. And what you want is to be close and to feel close. And so, in the same as any human relationship, if you are not good with someone, they will be far from you. And so it's an art and skill to be able to, you know, cause a person to feel comfortable with you, to feel that you love them. And so God is operating in this very reciprocal way. And if you come with sincerity to God, God is absolutely there for you. And God adores His children, you know, all of them. But
yes, can I interrupt you there? Denise, there are some of God's children whose behavior is atrocious. Does He love them as well?
you know, God, what is God's love? God's love is to give people information which causes them to behave well. That is God's love. Now, if somebody is behaving atrociously and not interested in doing anything otherwise, they will be very far from God. They will be unable to perceive or receive or interact with God because of that behavior. But when the day comes when they stop doing that, or they regret that, or something like this, this is where the situation can change. And there is where they need to turn to God to perhaps apologize for behaving in such a wretched way, and to sincerely ask for forgiveness and want to come close. You know, this is the reality.
Yes, Denise, is communicating with God in art, is it a skill that you have taught yourself? Does every person communicate with God in the same way? Does it require some sense of individuality?
Communicating with God is communicating with the Supreme Being, communicating with the Supreme Intelligence, communicating with the ocean of love. The more you know about God, the more you have something, a basis on which to approach God. You know, you may begin it by saying, okay, God, I know you're there, but I can't feel you. I want to feel you. I know you're loving, so let me try and feel your love. Something like this, you see. So anyone who's operating out of materialism, greed, lust, anger, ego, etc., they are going to put God away, and they're not going to be able to make contact. But if you know that you're a child of God, and your Father is the ocean of love, then it is incumbent on you to be loving, to reflect the reality that you are the child of the ocean of love. So if you're not loving and you say, I'm a child of the ocean of love, it's inconsistent. You have to be consistent. The inside and the outside has to match. What you say and what you do has to match. What you are has to be aligned with who your father is, your teacher is, your mother is. So, you know, God will say, make me yours in all relationships. And then you have to investigate that and figure out what that means. You know, God will say, okay, I am a being of light. You are also a being of light. So you have to become a being of light to be on the same level with God and to make that mental connection.
Yes, Denise, what is it about God that makes him the most famous personality in all of time?
Probably the actions.
What actions are those?
The act of completely purifying all the souls and transforming all the souls from being based in negativity, materialism, contaminated by all sorts of negative actions, and bringing them back to their original pure condition. And what this causes is for the world to be a paradise world, because everyone in it is behaving in a very beautiful way. That's what God is famous for.
Okay. Okay, as one gets to know him, one's illusions about him fall away?
I don't know that they fall away. I think you might find yourself in a struggle of divided loyalties, because you may have a loyalty to your religious upbringing, and then you may find that God is not as he was presented, and so then you have to deal with that. You have to come to terms with that, and you have to decide what's right and then go with that. And that's a step that takes a lot of courage, because when you move out of familiar territory into unfamiliar territory, you have to be quite self-reliant.
Mr. Denise, would you take us through a journey and show us how it is that you engage with God in a manner that's real to you?
To do a meditation, the most important thing is to give time to become soul conscious. So sit in a balanced way and turn your attention within. That all your energy, which is spread throughout your body, and your attention, which is going out into the world, gently and gradually bring that in. Turn yourself within. Let the energy of your being move upwards through your body to hold stable in the center of your forehead. And really think about yourself as not your body. I am a soul, a being of light. I'm very, very subtle. I am forever, and I'm a child of God, the Supreme Being. I'm a student of God. So let me turn my attention away from this everyday world and let myself shift to another dimension, a world of light. I am very subtle. I'm coming into another dimension. I can feel myself in that world of light, and that is where God, the Supreme Being, is. And I can feel the presence. I can feel the qualities of God. I feel, first of all, that peace, which is completely different from anything you feel in the world. It's a deep and beautiful vibration of stillness and benevolence. And behind that peace, there is that love. I begin to feel waves of love coming towards me, flowing over me. God is the ocean of love. And as I approach that ocean, I begin to realize how huge, how powerful, how beautiful, and how pure that is. I start to feel it. Everything else disappears from my consciousness, and I'm only with that love. I can feel the purity, the intention that one has for me to be the very best that I can be, and to receive the treasures from that source. I am approaching the mind that is the most beautiful mind of all, that has no negativity, that is filled with truth and beauty. I'm coming nearer. I'm beginning to apprehend the architecture of that mind that sees the totality of every person and who focuses on the heart and the beauty of each one. And I begin to see how that one sees me as his beloved, precious, cherished child. I feel that he wants me to be able to grasp what is in his mind, and he opens himself up to me, and I begin to see what that one sees in me and in the world, and what that one is like, what that one knows, how that one knows the world. And still feeling that peace, that love, that purity, I can actually take it in and feel myself being made more whole, more harmonious, more clear, more transparent. And then gently I return back to the everyday world. Om Shanti.
Wow. 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 Thank you. And wow.
You see, it's only about thought. You're just focusing your thought and following that stream of thought. And the more you know, the further you can go.
My sense is we haven't exhausted this topic, and I'd like to revisit it with you at some later stage, but thank you. Brothers and sisters, I hope that you were able to take Denise Ben's words not just into your mind, but deep into your heart, and I hope you were able to feel what she has just shared. And the beauty of today's spiritual experience is that it is simply an hors d'oeuvre of what you yourself can experience if you put your mind and heart to it. And I think the most beautiful message that Sister Denise has shared, not necessarily in words but in sentiment and feelings, is God is waiting for you. And I do love the expression that all you need is sincerity. So I do wish you well on your spiritual journey, and goodbye.